So you're in the San Antonio market. You've been there for quite some time. And what I guess what did that first deal look like then in terms of your numbers, and then has your investing strategy evolved over time as you learn things and as the market's changed?
So the first one, as far as numbers, I bought it for right around 60,000. I had my major $5,000 rehab, but it was a pretty good deal. It was probably worth about, 95 at the time, as a little tiny 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And I was able to, finance it, rent it out. And so I had about $300 a month in cash flow, which, I'm really excited about it. And so that's when I started thinking, okay, well, let me do a few more. And I began building a portfolio of rentals, just one house at a time, one at a time. And then as that portfolio grew, I learned more about the notes, which I'm a huge believer in rental property, but I'm also a huge believer in investing in notes. And so the business model has changed some, where we still own our rentals and they're still a great piece of the portfolio, but also we focus on a lot of seller finance notes, which have their own advantages as far as cash flow. So now the model is probably, I guess, 90% of what we do is on the note side and still manage the other part. Versus when we started, it was, I guess when I started, it was 100% just trying to accumulate more rentals.
Wow. Oh, so I want to get into kind of the difference between, because I think some people are hearing this like, I don't even know what you're talking about, investing in notes.
Perfect.
So I want to get into the difference of those two, but first, I guess, how were you scaling at the time? Were you working a full-time W-2 job? Because I think people hear this and they're like, how does that even work? Like, how do you keep buying rental properties? So what did that look like for you?
So that's exactly what it looked like. I would, there's advantages to having the W-2 job as far as getting financing and being bankable and being able to show this income. And so I would basically purchase the property. I used hard money a lot, or wherever I could get the money, and then I would refinance into these longer term loans. And the first ones were 30-year notes, of the first 9 properties. And so the rates were, we were in that 5.5, 6.5 range, which was great at the time. And so I would use those to scale. And then I realized, well, if I source my own properties. So I started marketing and sourcing my own properties, which it does take more of a time commitment to do that, but you could get the deals, much better deals. And so I quickly learned the better deal I could get, the more money I could get, because not just, it wasn't as focused on banks then, it would be more private lenders, but a private lender is only going to put their money where they feel it's safe. And so if you can get it at a much lower price, they're much more willing to loan money. And so after I got those first few rentals, then the scaling happened when I started using other people's money, but really just private lenders to help me fund more deals. And some of that, I would wholesale some of those, we'd flip some of those. But then probably the biggest game changer on the scaling as far as money was some of the local banks, which I thought I was pretty smart and pretty cool at the time. And I met an investor here in San Antonio who's way better than me. And he was like, yeah, why aren't you doing this? And I'd never even heard it, but we have some local banks here, and they really allowed us to basically refinance out of any rental property at the time. And that's how we were able to stack multiple. So we knew we had the refinance money set. We just had to purchase at a discount, rehab, get it rented, and then they would refinance it right away. So that really, really helped. And you get a few more. When you have the first 3 or 4, you can completely run that with a full-time job, no problem at all. But as you get up, you're going to need some people to help you, and you're going to, the first thing I learned was to quickly stop doing certain things. Like, I'm a handy guy, so I would want to go over and fix some stuff. Like, what am I doing? It'd take me 3 times as long. Just pay the plumber, have him go over there and fix this. Yeah. Or pay the AC guy, let him go fix it. Because, and I stopped leasing right away, actually showing them and leasing the property. I was trying to do everything because I thought I was saving money. I was costing myself an incredible amount of time and not really saving that much money.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. I think that what you just said, that list of things you're not going to do anymore, I think is more important than the list of things to do,
yep.
which is a different mindset. But there's always stuff you can do in your business, but you can't graduate to that next level until you figure out the things you're intentionally going to not do. And it's a great point. So, in terms of the types of deal or the types of financing you were getting from that bank then, so basically you would do the Burr model when you'd fix them up, and then they would refinance basically all your private money out that you used to purchase and rehab.
Exactly. We were able to get what's called a guidance line of credit, which very simply is we could go in and apply, and they'd say, okay, we'll let you buy $1 million worth of rentals. You get $1 million, but it's not like they give you the $1 million to go buy them. We would use private money to purchase them, rehab them. Once we had them leased, we could then take the lease, and they said, well, we'll finance as many as you can fit in that $1 million. We have a lower price point here in San Antonio than a lot of places, so we could, fit several properties in there, and we did hit it at a good time because the bank wanted more rentals in their portfolio, and this is local banks here. And so after we did the first one, they're like, "Hey, do you guys want to do another one?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll do that, sure." I was just about to I wasn't about to bring it up. I was, but we knew we had the money, so if we could buy them and rehab them and get them rented they would finance back 75% of the appraisal. So if we knew that we were in 72, 73 cents on the dollar, that we would be able to pull out all of our money. And most of the time we could do that because we were sourcing the deals ourselves.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you're listening to this, I mean, basically you need money for one deal. I mean, obviously if you're going to do multiple deals at the same time, you need more than that, but you could essentially just recycle the same money. So you go to a private lender, you get $100,000, buy a deal that's 75, fix it up for 25, it appraises for 150, and you get all your money back and do it over again, and just keep repeating this. So if people are sitting there, listening to this going, oh, I don't have any money to do deals, and you haven't talked to all your local bankers, then, you shouldn't be making excuses, because these local banks are out there.
They're out there, and I think you make a great point. A lot of people think, well, I need to go raise $1 million, $2 million, and we have one private lender that stands out. Now he's lent us $300,000, but he's lent us in the same $300,000 time after time after time. He's happy. We always pay him. We always take care of him. It's not that we raised $3 million with him. We just used his $300,000 10 times, and when you can cash back out, you don't need that many lenders to really, really start to grow.
Yeah, such a great point. So, what motivated you to start looking at notes then and start doing more owner finance? If you had this bank relationship there, what was the impetus for that?
So the thing was the cash flow. And I think for every person, how they build it needs to be built around their lifestyle and what their goals are. But when we create the note, so for folks that don't have or are not super familiar, right, we would buy the property, we would repair the property, and then instead of renting it or just selling it on the market, we would sell it to an owner. They would give us a down payment, and we would finance it to them. So they would make a monthly, principal and interest payment. Well, then basically just like you pay your mortgage at the bank, they were paying us. The advantage there is that cash flow. If that mortgage payment is $1,000, $1,500, is we keep that. It's scalable. We don't own the home. It's not our taxes. It's not our insurance. The water heater breaks. It's not a repair. We don't have a vacancy. So we could get more cash flow. It's very predictable. And once you had it, and if you set up these notes really well from the beginning, and you want to screen your potential borrowers, just like people always talk about screening their tenants, really set people up for success, you can have a long-term cash flow payment, very predictable, and it doesn't have that up and down, so if we could stack a few of these notes, you could see how quickly you can reach your cash flow goal. That was the biggest game changer.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone always says it's better to be the bank. So you're basically turning yourself into the bank. So can you walk through an example deal of what the numbers might look like on a typical deal? Like, what are you
Mm-hmm.
buying it for? What do you have to put into it? What do you sell it for?
Yeah, so typically we would be looking to buy an off-market property at wholesale price that needs some repairs, and we have a market here that does lend a lot to owner financing, but so we want to sell the property under 200,000 if we can, right? What that allows us to do, one, there's a big market for owner finance in that price point, but also because the interest rate is a little higher than a bank, it allows us to keep that payment down where people can afford it. Whereas if you had a higher interest rate on a $500,000 house, obviously that's going to price a lot of people out. So we'll purchase the property for say 120, $125,000. We're bringing this up to rent ready or a little better. So maybe 20 to 25 in there. So if we're in at 150, we would probably sell it at 199.9 or whatever the market value is. Sometimes that's a pretty decent spread for us. We're shooting for that. We don't always make it, but we'll sell it at market value. Our typical borrower will bring 25,000 to closing. That will include their escrows, so it won't all go to down payment, and then we'll finance them uh, typically on a 30-year note, but we have people that qualify for 15. We have some guys that do a 10. Um, there are people who are not bankable. They're never going to get to Wells Fargo, but they make a lot of money,
Yeah.
and they just can't get a mortgage. And so we found that to be a win-win. But if you finance that note, you're probably looking at a principal and interest payment of on a 30-year of right around 1,600. And so the idea being is let's do all the steps right. Let's do it right one time. I like longer notes, me personally, and so we'll set it up. And if we got $1,600 a month for 30 years, if they pay us every month for 30 years, I have no problems. If they pay us off early, well, great. We just, we came out a little bit ahead just because of the amortization, because they'll be amortized just like if you did the table on your own mortgage where that
Hmm.
interest is paid up front. So really puts you in a good position. Of course, you have the house as collateral should there be a problem. But if you set the note up right, and we use a third party servicer to manage collection, hold escrows,
Mm.
because I think anybody that does that is a little bit crazy. We're not going to go
Yeah.
collect all the payments. We're not going to escrow for everybody. So they'll do that for us. And when you set them up right, these people are happy. They love the fact that they got a chance to buy a home. It served a group that is by all from anyway from the outside looking in, completely qualified to buy this home. They just don't have the set established credit that our system that we have to play by, and they make the
Hmm.
payment and they make the payment and they make the payment, and everybody's happy. And once you've done that, you really can step back. There's no other work for me to do.
Yeah.
So that was the big benefit, is getting back the time and creating a little more cash flow per property.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes so much sense when you describe it like that because you think about that group that's out there. I mean, just me personally as an entrepreneur, it's a
Mm-hmm.
struggle. Like going into a bank, like they're like, "Where's the W-2?" And like, well, I make enough money to pay for this, and like, we don't care. So,
Yep.
entrepreneurs, people who maybe had a bankruptcy a couple years ago, and the bank won't touch them for like 7 years or whatever it is, or immigrants who don't have credit built up, or what there's a huge population that just if you can really like kind of corner that market because there's just not enough people who are willing to do loans to those people. Um, so in terms of your financials and what you need, because it sounds like you need a lot more capital then to do this as opposed to recycling the same capital. You got to leave money in this deal because you're using private money, right, to finance it.
So so
Go
you're
ahead. Sorry.
right. But our model has grown over time, just like everybody does when you start. There are we don't wrap our notes and carry a, have a underlying payment and a second one, but you can do that. And there were times there's nothing wrong with it. You just have to disclose it properly. And I did that some as we were growing. Now we do have those banking relationships can sometimes, they just shift over time. And so now we do have banks that will allow us to take the note and we're going to refi that as our collateral, just like you would the property. Right. So once we've sold it, we can take this paper over there and say, hey, we have this promissory note and this stream of income. We'd like to use that as collateral to finance back out. Those relationships do typically take a little longer. So I wouldn't, maybe if it was day one, I wouldn't build my business model around that. But so that allows us to take cash out. You can purchase them with a private lender. And as you establish a relationship with a private lender, like we've told them, hey, we're going to sell this on a wrapped note before, again, we don't do this anymore, but I used to. And they'd be like, yeah, sure. I don't care. You always pay me. They're not really concerned. They have the first position lien. So that does where we hold ours because we can refinance them. We wouldn't want to leave that much cash in, but we have a lot of people who see the advantage in owning notes who will purchase them from us. So that allows us to recapitalize. So we'll keep some and we'll sell some a lot of people aren't going to do the work that we do. That's okay. Mm-hmm. If they have $150,000 and they just want to buy the note, no problem. We'll set it up just the way we would ours and you can purchase the note directly from us. That's another way that we recapitalize. And so I really think it just becomes a balance. If you were building the best situation for you and your family, what fits in there that is the best business for you. And if you should at least know about notes and the options that are there, and maybe it is or isn't the best fit for everybody, but it is been very helpful for us.